Thanks for joining us to talk more about property taxes. In the last video, if you watched it, we just talked about how your actual tax bill is a product of your appraised value times the tax rate. And we mentioned that if you don't like your appraised value, you can protest it, and there's pretty clear directions on how to do that. But today we want to spend more time talking about the tax rates themselves. And one of the things we wanted to do is give you a perspective, a historical perspective on tax rates. And we're going to do it from the perspective of a Wichita Falls city resident. And I realize there's some of the folks in our 6 counties that aren't in that area, and we're going to provide information to you in later posts that will have some of your information. But the same things will apply to Wichita Falls that apply to all the other places in our district. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's look at a 10-year chart for Wichita County. If you look in 2010, there were $6.1 billion in property values in Wichita County. By 2019, mostly with the same properties, it was just over $7 billion. The city of Wichita Falls started at $4.4 billion and is now up to $5.1 billion. In Wichita County, that 10-year increase is right at 15%. The city of Wichita Falls is a little over 16% increase just in property values in the last 10 years. Now let's look at the historical rates for these 3 entities. Wichita County started 10 years ago at 0.52 and is now increased to 0.67, right at a 30% increase in rate. And when you look at that, that is on top of the 15% increase in value, which is why the rates have increased by almost 50% in Wichita County in the last 10 years. The city has gone from a 0.63 to 0.76, about a 22% increase. If you look at the ISD, and the ISD is a bit different, but it shows going from a 1.2 to a 1.15. Now, I would note, and I'll talk about this when we talk about state involvement, that 7-cent decrease in 2019 was a result of $5 billion that the state used of state funds to buy down property taxes at the school level. Essentially, the state sent money to the schools and required that they do a 0.7, in some cases a little bit different, buy downs. What you can see is over the last 10 years, about 2/3 of any property tax increase you have in this area is related to the rate increases, not to the property valuation increases on a whole. That's not your individual property, but on a whole. The legislature has definitely gotten a lot of feedback from people about rates being too high. And so one of the things we did last session is pass a bill on SB 2 that restricted the growth at the county and the city levels to 3.5% property tax increase on the same properties. I don't mean the individual properties themselves, but on the properties as a whole. So let's say, for instance, that all of the property values in town went up by 25%. We'd all be happy that they went up, but we wouldn't want a higher tax. What that would require is local officials to decrease the rate by around 22% or go to the voters for approval. Now, since we don't have that issue in town, what it will do is keep the rates from going up without voter approval. We're just trying to provide you information. One of the things I wanted to point out that the state legislature does make the vast majority of the rules that are related to property taxes. And so any of the things that you see that you don't feel like are right or fair, we want you to comment. We want you to let us know. We also want to give you the data so that you can know what has happened historically, how different entities have spent money, how different entities have done with taxes, so that if you decide to be involved, that you'll have the information to do that. We'll also be posting more information for those of you who don't live in Wichita Falls or the Wichita Falls ISD, so that you have information on your own areas, and so that you can add the data to become more involved. Whether you want to be addressing your personal property valuation, or you want to do something about the tax rates themselves. I hope this has been informative for you. I look forward to doing it again. Thanks.